People who drink 5 or more cups of coffee a day have close to half the risk of dying from liver disease compared to people who drink none. That number comes from a study that tracked 354,957 people for a median of 13 years. One of the largest looks at coffee and liver health ever done. The researchers, based at Cedars-Sinai, used data from the UK Biobank. And they did not just ask people how they felt. They pulled liver scans, blood protein markers, and hospital records to see what was actually happening inside real livers over more than a decade. The headline sounds almost too good. A daily habit hundreds of millions of people already have, tied to dramatically lower rates of cirrhosis and liver cancer. Coffee has bounced between healthy and harmful in the news for decades. So a number this large deserves a real look, not just a headline. What did the study actually measure? What might explain it? And how much should this change what you do tomorrow morning? Let us sort the signal from the noise. Start with the scale of this. Because it matters. 354,957 UK Biobank participants, none of whom had cirrhosis or liver cancer at the start, reported their coffee habits and were then followed for a median of 13 years through national health records. Researchers found that risk dropped in a clear, stepwise pattern as coffee intake rose, not just a flat yes or no effect. People drinking 5 or more cups a day showed a 32% lower risk of developing cirrhosis, an almost 50% lower risk of liver cancer, and a 42% lower risk of dying from liver disease specifically, compared to non-drinkers. The technically new part is that a subset of nearly 29,000 participants also had liver MRI scans. And those scans matched the pattern. Coffee drinkers showed less fat, less inflammation, and less scarring in the tissue itself. That combination, self-reported habits, national outcome records, and direct imaging evidence all pointing the same direction, is what makes this study more convincing than a typical single survey. So why would coffee specifically protect the liver? Of all organs, researchers have a few candidate explanations, and they are not fully settled on one. Coffee contains compounds beyond caffeine, including chlorogenic acids and diterpenes, that have measurable anti-inflammatory and antioxidant effects in lab studies. Some recent work points to a specific mechanism. Coffee compounds appear to activate a cell receptor called NR4A1. Which plays a role in protecting cells from stress and may help slow the buildup of scar tissue. That leads to cirrhosis. The liver is also the organ that processes caffeine and most of coffee's other compounds directly. So it is exposed to concentrated doses of whatever protective chemistry coffee contains. More than most other organs ever see. There is also a simpler, boring explanation worth naming. Coffee drinkers may just be healthier on average in ways that are hard to fully measure and separate out. Both explanations can be true at once, and entangling exactly how much each one contributes is still ongoing work. Here is the detail that should make you pause before crediting caffeine. Decaffeinated coffee drinkers in this same study showed nearly the same liver protection as regular coffee drinkers. If caffeine itself were the main protective ingredient, decaf drinkers should have seen a much smaller benefit, since decaf strips out the vast majority of it. Instead, the pattern barely moved. That result points the finger away from caffeine and toward the hundreds of other compounds coffee beans contain, the chlorogenic acids, diterpenes, and antioxidants that survive the decaffeination process largely intact. It also quietly undercuts the simplest version of the coffee equals stimulant equals health effect story that shows up in a lot of health headlines. Whatever coffee is doing here, It looks more like a broader chemical cocktail effect than a single ingredient doing all the work. Which is a messier, more interesting answer than most coverage of this study bothered to mention. Here is what this study cannot tell you. And it matters. This is observational data, not a randomized trial. Researchers watched what people already chose to drink. They did not assign half the group to 5 cups a day and the other half to none. That leaves room for reverse causation and confounding. People who already feel unwell, including those with early undiagnosed liver problems, often naturally cut back on coffee, which can make coffee drinkers look artificially healthier in the data than coffee itself deserves. Credit for heavy coffee drinkers may also differ from non-drinkers in dozens of other ways. Income, diet, alcohol use, exercise, smoking, sleep, that researchers try to statistically control for but can never fully eliminate. The study team did it just for known factors like alcohol intake and body weight. And the dose-response pattern and MRI evidence make a real biological effect plausible. But plausible is not proven. No study like this can tell you that starting a 5-cup habit will lower your personal risk. This is population-level evidence, not a prescription. And it is not medical advice for your specific health situation. Quick recap. A study of 354,957 people, tracked for a median of 13 years, found that 5 or more cups of coffee a day was linked to a 32% lower cirrhosis risk, a nearly 50% lower liver cancer risk, and a 42% lower risk of liver-related death. Liver MRI scans on a subset of participants backed up the pattern with physical evidence. And decaf drinkers saw nearly the same benefit, pointing away from caffeine and toward coffee's other compounds. So, signal or noise? Leaning signal, with a real caveat attached. The scale, the consistency across self-reported data and MRI scans, and a plausible biological mechanism make this more credible than the usual single-study health headline. But it is still correlation, not proof. And nobody should read this as medical instruction to change their diet. Treat it as a genuinely interesting data point about a habit hundreds of millions of people already have, not a treatment plan. Subscribe for health claims explained without the hype or the panic. Signal from the noise. Every week.